Hello, class. Today, we are going to go over Lesson 5, Chapter 1, Lesson 5, Solving Inequalities. So, the difference with inequalities and equations is inequalities gives you a range of solutions. When you solve an equation, you might get one solution or two solutions. You might get infinitely many or no solutions. But with inequalities, you're going to get a range of solutions. So let's start by looking at a very simple one just to kind of talk about the overview of this. So if we had 4x is greater than or equal to 25, if we were going to solve this and using the same steps you've learned to solve an equation, you would notice you have a coefficient. I need to isolate x, so I'm going to divide by my coefficient. So x is greater than or equal to 6. So now whenever you solve inequalities, because it's a range of solutions, it's important to graph it. So when I graph, I want to show the number that was solved for. Then just to not, so you don't have to put a bunch of numbers on there, at least show that you know what would be the number above 6, what would be the number below 6. Then when you're showing on your graph that x is greater than or equal to 6, well, the equal to part is important. That means 6 is included in our solution. So we shade it in to show that 6 is included. Then we look at the greater than. Well, that means everything greater than 6 is a solution. So that means your solution to this equation can be 6, could be 6.5, could be 7, 8, 9, 10, ... and so on. So it's a range of solutions. So that's how we solve an inequality. That's the difference between an inequality and an equation. So now let's look at one. It's another one step, but this time we're going to look at what happens when you have a negative in your coefficient. It has nothing to do with the fact that you have if you had a negative over here is irrelevant. It's if the negative is in your coefficient, in your variable term. We call it the variable term. Our coefficient is a negative 2, so we're going to do our same steps to solve. We're going to divide by negative 2. So what we have to do here, so say we just solve it like normal. Let's do it like this first. So x is greater than negative 5. That means that your solutions can be negative 5. They're greater than negative 5. So that means negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, so on. And you know what? I made a mistake because negative 5 is not included because it's just greater than. So we're going to mark that one off. All right. So it could be negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, and so on. Because it shows it's everything greater than x, everything greater than negative 5, I mean. So now let's check. Let's say we're checking for the solution negative 4. That's the one we want to check for. So I'm going to go up to this original, and I'm going to put negative 4 where the x is in the original inequality using this solution that we found. So negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8. Well, is 8 greater than 10 using that original? No. So therefore, negative 4 is not a solution. So it doesn't follow that x is everything greater than negative 5. All of this is incorrect. So now, let's do what we're supposed to do. If you divide by a negative, the rules say you have to flip your inequality symbol. Now it becomes less than negative 5. Now let's check. So this time your solutions can be anything less than. So negative 6, negative 7, negative 8, ... So let's check for negative 6. So I'm going to go back to the original, negative 2, times negative 6 is greater than 10. Well, negative 2 times negative 6 is 12, and 12, guess what, is greater than 10. So therefore, it follows that x is less than negative 5. So now if we graph that, you show negative 5, you show the number above negative 5, which is negative 4, you show the number below, which is negative 6, and then it's less than only. That means negative 5 is not included. Remember over here when it was greater than or equal, the equal 6 was included. Over here, it's just less than only, no equal sign. So negative 5 is not included. And then it's everything less than. So it's a range of everything less than negative 5. That's your solution. So this is your solution part. This is your graph part. All right, now let's make a quick graph reference. I'm going to do this on the corner of this page down here. A graphing quick reference. So if we have the first one we did, greater than or equal, we had a shaded in circle. That meant the solution was included and everything greater than. So that means if it was just less than, so this was less than or equals, the name of that one. If we have, sorry, not less than, greater than, I'll get it right in a minute. Greater than or equal, it was a closed circle, shaded to the right. If it's just greater than, it's an open, because that means the solution is not included. So this is just greater than. If it's less than or equal, then there's that equal sign, so it's shaded and to the left. So the range of solutions is everything less than. So this one is the less than or equal. And then last, just less than. That means no equal, solution is not included, but it's everything less than. So now that's just the less than. So this is a graphing quick reference where you can just go look real quick, check, oh, I have a greater than or equal, so I need to close, I need it to the right. And you can just check real quickly. Okay, so now let's look at, we're going to do two more, and we're going to get into multi-step inequalities. So the first one we're going to do has a fraction. So we have negative 4c is less than or equal to 58 all over 6. So when I see this inequality, I immediately want that 6 off the bottom. So anytime you have a denominator, that you want gone, and you have it set up like a proportion basically, you can just cross multiply that off. So now I'm going to do negative 4c times 6, negative 24c less than or equal. This does not change. 5c had nothing. You could have put a 1 under there and cross multiplied, but it wouldn't have changed anything because 1 doesn't change any. When you multiply it, it doesn't change the value. So now we're ready to solve this. We need our c's isolated together. So I'm going to move this one to positive. So I'm going to subtract it from itself and from the other side. So that ends up being negative 29c less than or equal 58. And then as you can see, we have a coefficient. And this goes back to that rule where we have a negative coefficient. If we divide by a negative, we have to flip this symbol, greater than or equal to, and that's going to be negative 2. So then now when I go graph that, I show negative 2. I show the number greater than negative 2, which is actually negative 1. The number that's actually smaller than negative 2 is negative 3. And then it's greater than or equal. So closed circle means negative 2 is included. And then everything greater than. So that means your solutions could be negative 2, negative 1, 0, and on into the positives. So there's one multi-step. Now we're going to do another one. This one's going to have distributive property because we can't ever practice too much on the distributive property. So let's do there we go. Okay, so as you can see, we've got to distribute. We've got a 5. We're going to distribute 5 times 3D is 15D plus 5 times 7, 35. Less than negative 3 times 2, negative 6D, negative 3 times negative 14, positive 42. So now we need our variables together. So we're going to add our 6D to itself and to the 15. That's going to be 21D. Then you're going to subtract 35. And then over here, you still have your less than. That's going to be 7. So now we divide by our coefficient. And this time, we end up with a fraction, no negatives, so we don't have to flip anything. 1/3 is our fraction. So the way you can do this is practice knowing where your fractions are. So if I have 1/3, that's between 0 and 1, correct? So it's going to be a little, it's not quite to the half mark. 2/3 would be over half. So you know, like 0 could be about right here. And you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. And then 1, because it's not quite the half mark. So you're going to go a little further this way for the 1. And that could be where 1/3 is. And so now it's a open circle because it's just less than. And then it's everything less than. And that's your lesson on inequalities, solving inequalities. So now you're gonna go to your outlets and you're gonna do lesson 5, which is your solving inequalities lesson on your outlets. All right, thank you.